NASCAR does not have a deal done yet to race in Mexico City in 2026, but would love to get a deal done soon. And Chase will make another start in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Hendrick Motorsports. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and our motorsports story discusser today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Parker Ressler's 2025 finish scheme that we'll see this weekend at Pocono. I really like the look of this car. The colors of this car look really, really solid. I think Alpha Prime's done a really good job on their paint schemes. This one's no exception. It looks really good. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Pocono. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brandon Jones' 2025 Spectracide scheme that we'll see in the Truck Series race on Friday afternoon. This truck looks really, really good. I love the colors on it. I think Tricon's had some really nice looking paint schemes this year. This one looks really good. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Pocono. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ross Chastain's 2025 Busch Light Lime scheme that we'll see at the Brickyard 400. I really love the look of this scheme. I like the green on it. You get the lime look of the car. This is a really nice looking one. Kyle Sykes did a fantastic job on the scheme. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at the Brickyard 400. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Alex Boma's 2025 Ally Best Friend scheme that we'll see this weekend at Pocono. I was a big fan of the one they had at Phoenix. This one's a little bit different. They got a different dog on the car this time around. I think this one actually looks really good. I love the colors on it. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Pocono. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Spencer Boyd's 2025 CSI scheme that we'll see this weekend at Pocono. Truck looks alright in my opinion. Pretty cool to see a new sponsor working at CSI Industries, which works very closely up in the Pocono area. It does look solid. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Pocono. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Tyler Reddick's 2025 Upper Deck scheme that I believe are going to be seen at Atlanta. This has a Superman look to it as well. I think the scheme is okay, but it definitely could be better. I'm a better fan of the other Superman schemes we've seen Hendrick Motorsports do over the years. This one's a little bit of a letdown. I think 2011 has not had the best scheme so far this year, but it's not the worst paint scheme I have ever seen in NASCAR competition. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Matt DiBenedetto's 2025 PTN scheme that we'll see this weekend at Pocono. I really love this car quite a bit. I think Vikings had some nice looking cars on the racetrack this year. This one actually does look solid. The colors do look okay on this car. Looking forward to seeing the racetrack at Pocono. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Todd Gilliland's 2025 Grillo's Pickle scheme that we'll see this weekend at Pocono. This looks very similar to the one he had last year when he drove the number 38 car. There's not much, and one that Michael McDowell drove, of course, last year. This one does look all right. It has some good colors on it. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Christopher Bell's 2025 Ream 100 Year scheme that we'll see this weekend at Pocono. The major difference is there's gold on the car, especially with the gold and chrome numbers. I actually like this quite a bit, in all honesty. I love the different chrome numbers on it. I actually would love to see if they use chrome going forward. It does look pretty solid. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Pocono. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Timmy Hill's 2025 unit scheme that we'll see, I believe, at Watkins Glen and Pocono. I think the truck looks okay. It's a little different in my opinion. Not my favorite scheme I've seen from the Timmy Hill's organization this year, but I think it definitely looks solid. There's good look to it. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Pocono. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, we kind of talked about the story a little bit over the weekend, but Shane Van Gisbergen won the NASCAR Cup Series race at Mexico City by 16.567 seconds. That is the second largest margin of victory on the modern era of NASCAR Cup Series. The largest margin of victory in the modern era of NASCAR, at least largest, was the one that Kurt Busch had back in 2009 at Texas Motor Speedway when he won the race by 25 seconds. And keep in mind, that was when there was a lot of fuel mileage going on during that event, and they had enough fuel to make it to the checkered flag. Shane Van Gisbergen straight up did that, and that was a very impressive win for Shane Van Gisbergen to win by that much. And the thing is, he could have had a lead by 17 or 18 seconds, but he backed off on the white flag of the race because he knew he was going to have a great chance and opportunity to get that win and get that victory. He knew he was very likely going to have it done by the end of the event. So nonetheless, congratulations, Shane, on having a record of the second largest record for an event. Really exciting stuff and pretty cool to see him have a pretty large event and a record, a second most in the modern era of NASCAR. I think it's the largest margin of victory for a road course ever in NASCAR Cup competition. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Iowa Cup race. As it was officially announced earlier today that the Iowa Cup race has officially sold out and all Grand Seed seating is officially sold out for 2025. This is now the second straight time that the Iowa Cup race is sold out, going back to last year. The Iowa Corn 350 presented by Ethanol also was announced today. They have signed a multi-year entitlement sponsor, confirming that Iowa Speedway will be back on the NASCAR schedule for 2026. Iowa's brought a lot to the table. There were some people talking about maybe they should add more seats to Iowa Speedway, and I do entirely agree. If they added more seats to Iowa Speedway, I think a lot more people would show up and go into the racetrack. But I think this is a really good deal to see them sell out this year, and we've been seeing a lot more sales, so there's been some tough times with the economy and all this stuff this year, but I think it's pretty cool the Iowa Cup race has officially sold out for 2025. It's unknown how many seats are left for the Xfinity Series. I think the infield is almost sold out as well for the Cup race at Iowa, so really cool to see the Cup race has officially sold out for this week, or not for this weekend, but in August at Iowa. It's kind of crazy. We're still 2 months away from that event, or about a month and a half, and the event has sold out already. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about RFK Racing. Now, many of you have probably already seen this on social media earlier today, but RFK Racing is teasing an announcement on their social media page for later today, I believe at noon Eastern Standard Time. Now, what could this announcement be? There's been a lot of speculation that it could be something to do with sponsorship. Some have suggested that it could be something to do with Cinnamon Toast Crunch. There's been some, I think they have some association with the Kroger brand, if I'm not mistaken, and that's a big reason why people bring this up as a major possibility. It could also be a potential possibility that it could be maybe a driver announcement for like Cam Waters, something like that, but from what I understand, Cam Waters is not going to be driving in that car at Chicago, though he is still working on a deal to race with the team, so maybe it is a driver announcement at this time. But I'm very intrigued to see what this announcement is actually going to be, and if it is a sponsorship announcement, that is a really big deal, but if it's a driver announcement, that's also going to be a cool deal as well for a fourth car. Maybe we see like Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed get an opportunity racing Cup in a fourth car if it happens. Who knows? At this point, it would be with the number 15 car, which of course has been a 0-1 car this year for Corey LaJoie as well. We'll see what that official announcement is, and we'll see who does get behind the wheel. If it is a driver announcement, we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that front. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mike Harmon Racing. As it was announced yesterday that Mike Harmon Racing has announced that they will officially return to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series for the first time since 2019. They will be doing double duty this weekend as they will not only compete in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, but they're also going to compete in the Xfinity Series event as well. For this weekend at Pocono, Dawson Cram is going to be competing in both events in the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. Not Cup Series, the Truck Series. It was also confirmed that Caleb Costner, who's been a fixture in ARCA for the last few years, he will be driving the 74 truck at Richmond in August. Caleb Costner has had some decent success in ARCA, scoring quite a few top 10s. This is going to be a really strong opportunity for Caleb to move up to NASCAR's top tier divisions. Pretty cool to see him get a chance and opportunity to run. I think he'll do a solid and pretty good job with this team and program. Moving on to them returning to truck competition, though, I think it's really awesome. It's great to see a team like Mike Harmon Racing, who has not been as active in recent years, and they've struggled to make races this year in competition. They will be able to make it pretty easily because, of course, there's only 33 or 34 trucks that will be showing up, so everyone is going to be able to make the event, and there's no issues with getting in the event as a whole. So great to see them back in the truck series once again. I think they're going to do solid. I think they're going to be pretty competitive for sure, and I'm definitely looking forward to see what Mike Harmon Racing can do. Again, I think they've got a strong chance and a very good opportunity to run very well this week. Not well, but at least do a decent job at Pocono with some of this craziness that we might end up seeing. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brennan Poole. As it was announced yesterday that Brennan Poole will be making his first NASCAR Cup Series start since 2023, I believe at Dover Motor Speedway, as it was announced earlier this week that Brennan Poole will drive the number 44 for NY Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series this weekend at Pocono. Like I mentioned a second ago, the last time Brennan Poole competed in the NASCAR Cup Series is back in 2023 when he drove the number 15 car for Rick Ware Racing. Now, we know NY Racing is a team that does not always set the world on fire, but in my opinion, this is an amazing opportunity for Brennan Poole. I think Brennan Poole is generally one of the most underrated drivers in NASCAR at this point. He's done a lot of really good things at Alpha Prime Racing over the last couple of years. He has outran that car and has an outside chance this year of even making the playoffs, despite the fact that Alpha Prime Racing is not a top-tier team and not a top-tier organization. I could honestly see this car actually being a little bit more competitive, as we've seen this year if even J.J. Yeley Emerly for that matter, we have seen that car have some pretty good pace and some really, really strong speed. So I am expecting that this car could be really, really fast at Pocono. I think they're going to try to bring the best car they can. They do, of course, get a lot of help from ECR and Richard Chodos Racing as well for the rides. Of course, Greg Biffle was supposed to drive for this team, but of course that did not end up happening. Nonetheless, great to see Brennan Poole get the chance and opportunity to drive at Pocono. We'll see what it can do, and we'll see if he's very, very competitive this weekend in the NASCAR Cup Series race at Pocono. I think he's got a good chance and opportunity, but we'll see if he can prove it and do really good this weekend at Pocono Raceway. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Patrick Emerly. As it was announced last night that Patrick Emerly will be driving a 07 truck for Spire Motorsports this weekend at Pocono. This is only going to be, I believe, the second or third time that Patrick Emerly has competed in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series this year. He, of course, drove the number 75 truck for Henderson Motorsports at North Wilkesboro, which he has some decent success in that event and shows some decent speed. This is going to be the best opportunity that Patrick Emerly has had in his NASCAR career because Spire Motorsports, they are a really strong and good team. And remember, they won the race at National Super Speedway not too long ago, and they were very, very competitive with Roger Krug picking up the win. And of course, Kyle Larson has won this truck this year, and Kyle Busch and Carson Osbar have also been able to go to victory lane. However, we got to remember the 07 truck has also struggled at times. I mean, BJ McLeod didn't do amazing, though he got some damage and still finished top 15. And Kyle Busch even struggled in the 07 truck. This is the weakest of the 4 Spire trucks that are in the group over there. That being said, I think this is overall an amazing and fantastic opportunity for Patrick. I hope he can make the best of it. I think Patrick's very talented. He's got a lot of success in racing and modifieds for the last few years. And I think that Patrick could be in for a really strong and great run with this team. I hope he can run really well. The competition is going to be stacked and it's going to be really good. We'll see what it can do, and we'll see if Patrick Emerly can run really good. I think he does still have a pretty good chance and a good opportunity to do very well in the Truck Series race this weekend at Pocono with Spire Motorsports. A great opportunity for him this weekend at Pocono. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about SportsCenter. As it was reported by Dustin Albino and jski.com as well, that it was announced on Monday that SportsCenter will be airing at Dover Motor Speedway ahead of the NASCAR Cup Series race that is going to take place there on July 19th and July 20th. Marty Smith, who still works at ESPN currently at the moment, is going to be the on-air correspondent that is going to be there. And the reason they're doing this is because it's part of the 50 States in 50 Days Tour. This is a really awesome deal. We have not seen SportsCenter or ESPN really in general involved in NASCAR since they stopped covering NASCAR back in 2014. And granted, Marty Smith is still involved in NASCAR in some way, shape, or form. He does have some close ties with a lot of people. He, of course, has really close ties with Dale Jr. There were a lot of rumors he was going to come to Amazon and do some coverage for the sport this year. That obviously did not end up happening this year. But I think that seeing Marty Smith still involved in the sport is a really awesome thing to see. And I think seeing SportsCenter, ESPN getting involved, albeit ESPN is a shell of its former self at this point, and there's a lot of things that need to be done, I think it's still a big deal because when you think of motorsports, when you think of history of NASCAR, ESPN does have a lot of history and a lot of great history, but also a lot of negative history with the sport as well. So I think it's fantastic to see that SportsCenter is going to be getting involved ahead of the NASCAR Cup Series race at Dover. They're going to be involved throughout the weekend as well, and maybe we'll see during the TNT side of things, Marty Smith get involved on that broadcast in some way, shape, or form. We'll see what happens, but nonetheless, pretty awesome to see the SportsCenter will be going out and doing some NASCAR stuff and covering the sport a little bit more as NASCAR tries to continue to grow and develop as a series. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Luke Bowwin. As it was announced on Monday morning that Luke Bowwin will be back behind the wheel of another Thorport Racing entry. As it was announced, he'll drive the number 66 for Thorport Racing this weekend at Pocono. This is not a race that I believe he was originally scheduled to drive. He only had 3 starts originally scheduled in Kansas, or North Wilkesboro, I should say, was the last original start scheduled for Luke Bowwin with this team and this program as well. But Luke Bowwin is getting another opportunity. And a big reason for that is because Luke Bowwin, in my opinion, is a very talented driver. And he's kind of from this area as well. I believe Luke Fenhaus was supposed to originally drive this race. But, of course, I think Luke Fenhaus is going to be doing some late model stuff during that time, which is why Luke Bowwin is going to be coming in. I think Luke's has shown some promise in the races that he's ran this year. He was really fast at Martinsville in his debut, had one of the fastest trucks in the field. He did make some mistakes on the track that cost him a great chance and opportunity to maybe go out there and compete for the overall win in victory. But I do think he is going to be very, very fast, and I think he's going to show some great pace and really good speed this weekend. Because Thorport Racing, let's be real and honest, so far this year, they have not had the best speed, and they have struggled quite a bit in 2025 as well. They haven't really been that great. I mean, they've only got one driver currently at the moment that is locked into the playoffs, and that is Ty Majeski, who's also had a down year compared to winning the championship last year. And I don't think there's any Thorsport truck that is going to be winning the championship this year unless Ben Rhodes or someone from that team outside of Ty Majeski ends up going to victory lane. Nonetheless, a great opportunity for Luke Bowwin. I think it's going to be fun to see him drive that 66 truck. I'm looking forward to see what he can do, and we'll see if he can run really fast and really strong this weekend at Pocono. I think it's a great opportunity. We'll see if we can do a really good job this weekend when we head to Pocono Raceway. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Days of Thunder. Now, we have talked about Days of Thunder quite a bit on this channel over the course of the last couple weeks because there's been a lot of increased chatter that Days of Thunder 2 may be coming back in the not-so-distant future, and there's been a lot of rumors about it happening in the NASCAR circles and the entertainment circles as well. Well, Jeff Gordon was at the premiere for the most recent Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, which could be the final Mission Impossible movie we're ever going to see. Jeff Gordon basically talked to Tom Cruise at that premiere since they both have struck a really good friendship over the years, and Jeff Gordon confirms that he is ready to help make the sequel to Days of Thunder. Remember, Days of Thunder came out around 1990 to 1991. It has been 35 years since Days of Thunder was officially released, and there was a lot of stuff that happened during that time. During the Daytona 500, they had two cars, the number 18 and number 51 car, which is substitute for Cole Trickle and Rowdy Burns as well throughout the film. They had Bobby Hamilton drive the car at one point. They had Greg Sachs drive the car, Hendrick Motorsports did, and Hendrick helped in a really massive and really, really big way make that sequel for the event itself. I think a lot of fans have been wanting a Days of Thunder sequel. Now, Tom Cruise is obviously a lot older at this point. I believe Tom Cruise is 62 currently at the moment and will turn 63 by the end of this year. By the time we do end up getting the next Days of Thunder movie, he could be 65 or 66 at that point. But I'm very intrigued to see what the plot of the movie will be if we do end up officially getting a Days of Thunder sequel. And trust me, I think a lot of fans really would love to see a Days of Thunder sequel because Days of Thunder is such a massive movie, and it was a really big success for the sport in general, as it was something that really helped lift the sport up into the new age and really helped the sport lift up to the next big level. And I think a Days of Thunder movie could really transition the sport into becoming popular once again, more popular than it's already been at this point. So I'm very interested to see what happens in regards to that, and if we're going to eventually get a Days of Thunder movie maybe in the not so distant future. I think many of us would absolutely love that for happen in the future, and the fact that Hendrick is wanting to help in the Hendrick Motorsports organization with Jeff Gordon being involved with that a lot closer, I think something like that can be arranged, and I do think something like that can be done for the organization and team itself. I think Hendrick will be involved if it happens. I would not be surprised if you see Trackhouse and other people get involved. I'm very interested to see what happens on that front and on that aspect, but nonetheless, really cool that it sounds like Days of Thunder is being worked on. I think many of us want to see a Days of Thunder sequel. It seems like there's a great chance and a strong possibility that we might be getting a Days of Thunder sequel in the not so distant future. I hope it happens, and I really hope it ends up working out for the sport and things going forward, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Thorsport Racing. Now, many of you have probably seen this little clip and little post that has surfaced from Thorsport Racing, but it seems like later today around 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thorsport Racing is going to be having a pretty major announcement in regards to a certain driver who could be driving a number 66 truck at Lime Rock Park in about a week or so from now. Remember, for the first time in NASCAR truck competition, they're going to be racing at Lime Rock Park. This is going to be the first road course race on the schedule for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in 2025, the first of 3 road courses, as they're also going to be racing at Watkins Glen and then racing at the Charlotte Roval for the first time. Now, there's been a lot of questions surfacing on who could be the driver in this truck. Now, obviously, there's a lot of interesting names that have been linked to it. I've seen people link Sam Hornish Jr. as a potential possibility, as he is a prior driver of the number 9 truck. I have seen people link others, maybe from Australia, like a Cam Waters, perhaps, who has driven the number 66 truck in the past, and from what I understand, he is working on a deal to race in NASCAR, but again, he won't likely race at the Chicago Street Course. And then there's been people who have insinuated that it could be Marcus Ambrose. Marcus Ambrose is a former driver of the 9, and apparently from what the NASCAR Nostalgia account said not too long ago, they said a former driver of the number 9 car was someone who could be associated with trying to get a ride with Thorport. I've heard Marcus Ambrose as a possibility, but I am not sure. Some will say Carl Edwards, but Carl Edwards never drove the number 9 car in any way, shape, or form. Some will say Mark Martin, but Mark Martin hasn't pretty much done with NASCAR for a very, very long time. I am very interested to see what it is. Now, some have suggested Paul Menard. There's a Trans Am races going on during that weekend, I believe, at Road America, so that is not a possibility to see Paul Menard get behind the wheel. But nonetheless, I am certainly very interested on who they are going to end up choosing to race with Thorport Racing at Limerock Park. That is going to certainly be the really interesting thing, because whoever they end up choosing, end up getting behind the wheel of that car, I think they could have a really good opportunity here, especially at a road course. If they get like a road course ringer, especially someone who's been really, really good at road course in particular, I think there's a great chance here that they could do a really good job. So we'll see who the driver exactly is in that 66 truck. We'll find out tomorrow afternoon. If there's a driver that's cool and interesting, there might be a video cover that on the channel later today. There could be a lot of videos coming out today on the channel, but nonetheless, really cool that it sounds like Thorport Racing is going to have a pretty big announcement, and I'm interested to see who that driver exactly is. We'll find that out here in the not-so-distant future and very, very soon. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen once again. Now, after Shane Van Gisbergen won the NASCAR Cup Series race at Mexico City, he spoke to reporters about picking up that win at Mexico City and talk about other things around getting better at certain aspects of the sport in racing as well. He said he was very happy to pick up the win, and that is a major reason why he was hired by Trackhouse Racing in the first place, was to go out there and win road course races and go out there and contend for wins at those types of tracks. But he also acknowledged when it comes to oval racing that while he is starting to show a little bit more improvement on the ovals currently at the moment, he does admit that the main thing I need to start doing as a driver is starting to improve on the road courses. The ovals. Shane Van Gisbergen is absolutely right. We know that Shane Van Gisbergen is one of the best road course racers in the NASCAR Cup Series currently at the moment. He's picked up 3 wins in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition, all on road courses, of course, and he has picked up 2 Cup Series wins in 2023 at the Chicago Street Course, in 2025 in Mexico City with Trackhouse Racing, of course, but both of those are road courses. We know he is one of the best road course guys in the field, and I don't think this is going to be the last time we're even going to see him go to victory lane in the NASCAR Cup Series this year. You look at like the Chicago, for example, he is the odds-on favorite to win that. If not getting taken out by Chase Briscoe and guys like Larson being in front of him in points, he probably goes out there and wins that race in the rain because he was so good in the rain. His long run speed during the race at Mexico City was so exceptional and really good, and he absolutely earned that win. Now, we'll talk about the playoff conversation later this week or later today as well, but obviously he absolutely earned and got a well-deserved win. But the ovals is where a lot of people talk about, because we know that Shane Van Gisbergen coming into this year, I think many of us knew and expected that Shane Van Gisbergen was probably going to struggle quite a bit on ovals this year. This is the one area where I felt like he wasn't going to be really, really good at. We all kind of expected that going into this year. However, I have noticed throughout this year that Shane Van Gisbergen has gotten a lot better on oval and oval tracks in general. He has had a lot of top 20 finishes in recent weeks. He has only had one finish, in fact, outside of the top 20 in the last 4 weeks, and it was because of strategy at Nashville where he finished in 25th place, where he was running in the top 20 a lot of the race and was outperforming Daniel Suarez throughout quite a bit of the event. He got a top 15 at the Coke 600. He finished in the top 20 at Kansas, and he's finished in the top 20 quite a bit in recent weeks as well. I think that as time goes on, he is going to get better at ovals, and I think by the end of this year, you're going to start seeing him kind of transition from being like a top 20 guy every week at ovals to maybe being a top 15 guy every week, and then maybe to a top 10. And who knows, by the end of the year, maybe Shane Van Gisbergen will be competing for wins. We got Marzo at the end of the year, and let's say he can go on a deep playoff run and get more wins. If he continues to improve on ovals, there's a chance he could finish in the top 20 in the regular season standings. That is certainly a major possibility for him on that front. I'm glad to see that he is continuing to improve. I think this win was a major and massive success for him in NASCAR competition. Congrats to him on getting that win at Mexico, and I think that he is going to continue to get better as a driver as time progresses and goes on, and will show a lot of improvement as a driver going into the not-so-distant future, especially on the ovals as well, because that's the big thing that he wants to do going forward. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Chase Elliott. Now, I did a video covering the story on the channel a couple days ago back on Monday, but it was announced, of course, on Monday afternoon that Chase Elliott will be making another start in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2025, as he'll be driving a number 17 car for Hendrick Motorsports this weekend at Pocono Raceway. Breakard had originally reported that it was very likely that was going to happen, where he was going to make a start for Hendrick Motorsports once again, and this will be the second and final scheduled start for Chase Elliott in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year. Since he's gotten the opportunity to drive the number 17 car for Hendrick Motorsports over the last couple years, he's had finishes of, I believe, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and 1st going back to Charlotte Motor Speedway in 2024. And there were guys like Noah Gragson competing with Brett Jones Racing, and of course Kyle Busch was competing in that event, and people like Haley Deegan were also racing along with Justin Allgaier, Brandon Jones, and those guys are racing in that event at Charlotte. But Chase Elliott was inevitably the driver who went to victory lane in that number 17 machine. Chase Elliott has also competed this year in the number 17 car, like I mentioned, the second time he'll race. I believe he led laps in that Xfinity race at Darlington and finished in second position behind an eventual winner of the race, Brandon Jones. Kind of a tryout for last year's Charlotte, where Brandon Jones got second and Chase Elliott was the winner. Now, Chase Elliott historically has been pretty good at Pocono when you look at his NASCAR Cup Series statistics. Chase Elliott has gone on to win a NASCAR Cup Series race, albeit that was an event where both Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch were both disqualified from the NASCAR Cup Series race, where they finished 1st and 2nd, and Chase Elliott inherited that win by getting it done. But Chase Elliott has historically been really good. He had the fastest car in the race last year before, unfortunately, having a rare speeding penalty that he had not had a lot of at that particular moment in time. And Chase Elliott also was really good in 2021 here, really good back in 2020, almost won, I believe, as a rookie back in 2016 as well. And this historically is a great track, not just for Chase Elliott, but for Hendrick Motorsports as well. Kyle Larson has not picked up a win, I believe, at this track at this point, but Alex Bowman's gotten a win here, and I believe William Byron has contended for wins at this racetrack as well. And I do think that Chase Elliott is definitely going to be a pretty big factor for this win in the Xfinity Series. This 17 car has gone to victory lane twice so far this year. Of course, has gone to victory lane with Kyle Larson when we ran the race at Bristol, where he led 276 or 277 of the 300 laps. And Kyle Larson dominated the Homestead race and should have gone to victory lane. He would have swept the weekend as he won the Truck Series race a prior day in the 07 truck and went on to win the Cup race. But Larson, of course, probably should have won the race at Homestead. And then, of course, we've seen Corey Day drive that car, of course, under the development contract with that team. And Corey Day has shown some improvement in recent weeks as well, and has definitely gotten better as a race car driver over at Hendrick Motorsports this year, not just with their Xfinity program, but you look at Spire Motorsports in the Truck Series as well. And we've seen improvement when he's driven the number 7 truck this year so far. I think he's done a pretty good job in the 7. He had a top 5 run at Nashville, did a really good job, and he's going to have a lot of really good opportunities and chances to get better. In fact, I believe he's making his road course debut on the Xfinity Series side at Sonoma later this year, and I think he's going to run a couple other races throughout the rest of the year as well. But going back to Chase Elliott, I think for Chase is also a great opportunity as well, because he's going to get the chance and opportunity to work with Adam Wall once again. Adam Wall is a really good crew chief, and there's a lot of people, of course, talking about whether we could see a breakup with Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson, and maybe like a change of the crew chiefing side of things, considering that Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson have now worked together for 10 years at this point. Some wonder if maybe we could see a split and maybe some changes on that front going forward. I'm very intrigued if something like that could happen for Chase Elliott, because I think some changes can absolutely be made for things to get better over at Hendrick Motorsports. But I've liked the speed from Chase at times. He had a really good run in Mexico City, and I think this weekend could be a big weekend for Chase. He'll look to sweep the weekend in the races that he's running, because he'll look to win the Cup Series race, win his first Cup Series race since Texas in 2024, when he had one of the fastest cars in that event and got it done there, and probably should have gotten a couple wins so far this year with some of the speed that he's shown, though he hasn't shown the most speed at times this year. But I think for Chase Elliott, this is a fantastic and really great opportunity to get that 17 car back in victory lane once again. That these cars especially are really good over Hendrick Motorsports, and I think Chase Elliott will have a really strong chance and an amazing opportunity to get it done, and he'll look to go to victory lane with Hendrick this weekend at Pocono. I think he's going to be a major factor, and I think he'll have a really strong chance and a fantastic opportunity to go out there and pick up the win and score the victory. Looking forward to see what he can do this weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Pocono, and look to bring that into the NASCAR Cup Series race at Pocono as well. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Mexico City. Now, of course, the Mexico City NASCAR weekend for the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series was a massive and really, really huge success for NASCAR. Ben Kennedy released a post talking about the success of this event across NASCAR. Now, according though to Bob Pockris and many in the industry, NASCAR is currently not struck a deal for 2026. As Bob reported early Monday morning, NASCAR and the OCESA, which is the organization that is running the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez track and running the event itself, they have not had a deal signed yet for 2026. Now, from what I understand and know, they technically do have a contract for 2026 currently at the moment, but there's a couple factors why we may not be going back to Mexico City for 2026. One big reason, IndyCar. There's a lot of chatter in the IndyCar industry and the IndyCar paddock currently at the moment that IndyCar could be headed to Mexico City. And it sounds like a deal is getting very, very close to being done. And I think there's a very good chance and a strong possibility that IndyCar will be headed there in 2026. Also, remember, the World Cup is also going to be happening in 2026 as well around that time. I think that's actually taking place in North America, and the U.S. and I believe Mexico City is going to be involved very heavily on that front, as well as, like I said, it's happening in the U.S. and other parts of North America as well, which I think is going to be something to kind of watch on that front. I absolutely think that Mexico City, though, however, should be on the schedule regardless of this. If you can't find a way to go to Canada, because there have been rumors as well about maybe going to Canada for 2026, at least on the Xfinity Series in the Truck Series side. But there is some talk currently at the moment. They also could go back there on the NASCAR Cup front as well in 2026 if they can't head to Mexico City. I think many of us fans would really love to see Mexico City back. You look at how excited people were and happy people were for this event. You look at the energy of the crowd that was at Mexico City. There was a lot of people that were so happy about the overall race in general. I thought the racing product, especially for road course racing in the next gen era, I thought was actually really strong and really good. And we had a fantastic and great race, all things considered at times. Sure, the end of the race a little bit boring with the domination with Shane Van Gisbergen winning by 16 or 17 seconds, but you're going to get that from time to time where someone is just going to have a straight up dominant car and a beast-like car and go out there and dominate an event. We haven't seen stuff like that a lot in recent years, so to see someone do that, I think is absolutely amazing. I don't think that should take away from the event happening. Now, obviously, there is a chance it could return in 2026. Now, if they do return to Mexico City for 2026, I think next year will be the last year for the event, at least for the time being. I do think the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez track does have a possibility of being a long-term fixture on the NASCAR schedule in the future, but right now I'm not sure if it's going to be on the schedule long term past 2026. I think a lot of people would love to see it come back, and I think some of the novelty would wear off, but I think you can build around this event. But there's also a lot of talk, like if they haven't mentioned this, but there is a lot of talk that NASCAR could also be looking to Brazil for 2026 at this point. There was a lot of talk they may be going to Brazil for this upcoming year, and I don't know if NASCAR is going to want to have 2 international dates on the schedule. It sounds like that's kind of fallen off, however, as a possibility, as they, of course, are focused on trying to save Fred Bowman Gray for the 2026 year. I'm going to be interested there. And also one thing to kind of pay attention to is what happens with Daniel Suarez. I think that could play a major factor because we talked a lot about Suarez, but especially with Shane Van Gisbergen winning the NASCAR Cup Series race, there is definitely a chance and possibly we may not even see Daniel Suarez in a NASCAR Cup Series ride next year. So at that point, is it really worth going back at that point? Because with Daniel Suarez being from Mexico, do they want to go back there because of that, or are they going to want to go north of the border? That is going to be the big question, because I don't want to see NASCAR like going from Mexico, for example, and then like going to Japan. I think that would be a definite big move. I think NASCAR needs to gradually kind of build up on the international front. I think you can have even 2 international dates in the future, like NASCAR had back in 2007 for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I think there is a very good chance and a strong possibility that we are going to see NASCAR potentially have an opportunity to race in Mexico City once again, and maybe in the long-term future, but I'm not sure past 2026 what the plans are at this moment, because I think that's the big question. Do they come back after 2026? Do they come back in 2026 in particular? And what other speculation and what other changes could come to the NASCAR schedule? Because I do believe there are going to be quite a few changes to the NASCAR schedule in the near future. I think some big changes are in the works for the next couple years. I think the Cup Series schedule is not going to have a ton of changes, though we know Chicagoland is very likely coming back for returning the NASCAR competition, as it's been rumored and speculated, and even Carson Nosbar, who we're going to talk about in video here in the coming hours or so. We're going to talk about that with Chicagoland, because Chicagoland is in the rumor mill as a potential major possibility of having a date rather soon. But I think for this event in Mexico, I think it was a massive, massive success. There is some things, if they are going to bring back Mexico City next year, they need to work on trying to figure out the travel situation, because the travel, among other things, was a major, major problem, because some teams had issues getting there, and some of the charter flights were having major issues and some minor issues, but also some major, major issues that really affected a lot of people that were going to the event in general and as a whole. So again, if it does return after 2025 and does come back next year, I definitely do want to see that. There's no denying that. But I think that's going to be the big question, is whether it will return after 2025 and then maybe come back in 2026, or if they take that to another part of the world, like going up to Canada, for example. I think that's going to be the thing to watch out for as time progresses and goes on, as we get closer to release the schedule, which I think there's a chance the schedule could get released at any given point in time. And I think regardless of what they decide to do with the schedule going forward, I think there definitely could be some pretty massive and big changes happening. We'll see what happens with the schedule for 2026 very, very soon, and what other changes that might be in the works in the not so distant future. So, that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's video. Do you think Mexico City will return to NASCAR in 2026? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Chase Elliott joining Hendrick Motorsports in Xfinity competition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In a couple hours from now, you're going to see a second NASCAR news video. We're going to talk about the Carson Hocevar situation, and we're also going to talk about some other stuff as well, like the 2011 Frommer Motorsports update on the lawsuit that came out earlier today. And then, of course, you're going to see some other stuff, like talking about maybe 2026 silly season, among other things as well. We got content coming out, people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Connor Zills, Junior Motorsports, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Cletus McFarland, Dodge, Frankie Muniz, Dana White, all the good stuff, KSI, Logan Paul, other things like things in the industry coming out soon. There's going to be race fix for the Truck Series race as well later today. And then on Thursday, we're going to have race fix for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, and maybe a paint scheme video, but I might push that to Friday. I'm not sure at this point. There's a lot of content coming and probably a lot of breaking news that'll be dropping on the channel in the coming days and weeks. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.